Hello everybody, Gage here from Sharp Knife Shop. Excited to have you with me for another episode of Versus. In today's episode, we are comparing the Gyuto against both the Santoku and the Bunka. We love doing this series for you guys. You seem to really enjoy it, and we do it so that we can give you a better understanding of which knife shape is more appropriate for your specific use case. We are lumping the Santoku and the Bunka into one category today because they are very similar knives, and we feel like a lot of our customers are deciding between, a Santoku or a Bunka against a Gyuto. So, in today's episode, we are going to be using 7 criteria to compare these two different knife shapes to one another. Those criteria are versatility, ease of use, slicing, rock chopping motion, up and down or push and pull chopping motion, intricate tip work, and of course, coolness factor. All right, so let's get right into it. We're gonna start with versatility. Of course, like we've done in the past, we're gonna be keeping score for you guys at home in case you lose track or in case we lose track. As I said, versatility is going to be the first category, and we have to give the edge to the Gyuto. And the reason for this is because the longer the knife, the more versatile it's going to be. Now, of course, the longer the knife, the more difficult it becomes to wield, but if you are able to master a longer knife, you're just simply going to be able to do more with that knife than with a smaller knife. Of course, slicing tasks are going to be much easier. Dealing with larger fruits and vegetables is going to be a lot easier. You can break down fish, break down larger pieces of beef. Just everything becomes easier to do in terms of those larger projects with a larger knife. On the flip side, just because the knife is larger doesn't mean you can't do some of those smaller tasks with it. And in fact, as you master a longer knife, like a 240 millimeter Gyuto, those smaller tasks like brunoise, shallot, and garlic become very easy to do with a knife that size as well. So for all of those reasons, and not to say that the Santoku and the Bunka are not versatile knives, but the longer the knife, generally speaking, the more versatile it's going to be. Our next criteria is the ease of use, and for this category, we have to give the edge to the Santoku/Bunka. Now, like we just talked about with the versatility category, the longer the knife, the more you're going to be able to do with it. However, the longer the knife, the more difficult it becomes to use. Now, for this particular category, we really have our home cooks in mind because when deciding between a Gyuto or a Santoku/Bunka, one of the main things we talk about with customers in the store is how comfortable you are with a longer knife. Now, if you're uncomfortable with an 8-inch chef's knife or something larger, then it makes no sense to buy one of those knives because you're gonna feel intimidated trying to use it. A Santoku or a Bunka having the slightly shorter blade doesn't mean that it's not a versatile knife. In fact, they are very, very versatile knives. You can use them for a lot of different things, but because they're a little bit shorter, your hand is going to be a little closer to the tip of the knife, and that's going to make it a lot easier to control. So, for all those reasons, the ease of use category goes to Bunka/Santoku. Our next category is slicing, and we've talked about this a little bit already, but the edge has to go to the Gyuto for the slicing category. This is because the Gyuto is generally going to be a longer knife. In fact, almost every case of comparison you'll find the Gyuto is going to be the longer shape. And of course, the longer your blade, the easier it's going to be to slice with it. Now, again, that doesn't mean you can't slice with a Bunka or a Santoku, and in fact, they are adept at slicing. But if you're dealing with larger pieces of meat, it's certainly going to be easier to slice with a larger knife. So, the edge for slicing goes to Gyuto. Next category is rock chopping. And once again, we are going to give the edge to the Gyuto for this particular category. Now again, this is a very general statement, but usually the Gyuto is going to have more of a sweeping profile to the blade, whereas a Santoku or a Bunka is going to have a slightly flatter profile. Again, that doesn't mean you cannot rock chop with a Santoku or a Bunka, but you're gonna have a little less travel because 1, the blade is shorter, and 2, the edge is not quite as curved, or the belly is not as pronounced as on a Gyuto. Now, on the flip side of that, there are a lot of gyutos out there that are super, super flat, but because of that extra length on the gyuto, even if it's on the flatter side, you generally have a little bit more travel when you're using that rocking motion. You'll also find the longer blade when you're using a rocking motion really helps a lot because your hand, when you're using a pinch grip on a Santoku, for instance, eats up almost an inch and a half of blade or edge length on your knife, and when you're rocking with only a very small amount of edge space, becomes a little difficult. So the edge for rock chopping motion goes to Gyuto. Next category, up and down or push and pull chopping motion. And if the Gyuto is better at the rock chopping motion, we certainly have to give the up and down push and pull motion to the Santoku / Bunka. And this is because, like we just talked about, the Bunka and Santoku typically have a flatter profile, which means that more of the edge of your knife is going to be in contact with the board when you're using that up and down push and or pull chopping motion, meaning you're not going to end up with those little like accordion or choo-choo train little stuck together pieces, which are so annoying. Now, again, very general statement here. There are some Santoku that are quite curvy, which will make them better at the rock chopping motion. There are some Gyuto that are very flat, which will make them really adept at the push and pull up and down chopping motion. But generally speaking, the Santoku and the Bunka are going to have a flatter profile, meaning we give the edge to them for the up and down push and pull chopping motion. Second to last category is the intricate tip work category, and we have to give the edge here to the Santoku / Bunka. So this kind of touches on a couple things that we've already discussed with the versatility and the ease of use. When you're doing intricate tip work, it is advantageous to have your hand as close to the tip of the knife as possible, because that's just going to give you more control over that part of the knife. So again, because your hand is closer to the tip of the knife when you're holding either a Santoku or a Bunka, it's going to be much easier for you to do those intricate tip work tasks like Brunoise shallot or garlic. Now again, not to say you can't do those things with a Gyuto, and in fact, as you become more adept with a Gyuto, I feel like I've said this already, you can absolutely do Brunoise shallot and garlic with a Gyuto, but I would argue, having worked in a professional kitchen and working with a larger Gyuto and a Bunka, when I was doing my Brunoise shallot and garlic, I would always reach for my Bunka because it's just easier to use. Your hand is closer to the tip. You'll also find that on a Bunka, with that K tip, you've got a little more travel for your guide finger there. And I just felt it was much easier and much less stressful doing those more intricate tasks with a Bunka. So, for all those reasons, the edge for intricate tip work goes to the Bunka / Santoku. Final category, the category we always get wrong, is the coolness factor. And I'm assuming today's episode will be no different. Let us know down below in the comments which you think is the coolest knife. And this one's tough because the Bunka is really cool. The Santoku is really cool as well, but I just am a sucker for that K-tip. I think that K-tip looks really, really awesome. And then, of course, the Gyuto is super cool because it's just bigger, and bigger knives are better or cooler? Well, I don't know. Again, let us know down below. But we came to the decision that the Gyuto is going to win the coolness factor, bringing us to a total of 4-3. Gyuto just barely edging out the Santoku Bunka. And we chose the Gyuto for this, for not only because it's a longer knife, which is just kind of cooler, but we also find that most makers, if not all makers, make a Gyuto, whereas not everyone makes a Bunka or a Santoku. I mean, that's not super true because I would say that the Santoku is a super, super common shape as well. But you'll just find that there's more options out there, I feel like, for Gyutos, more finishes, more steel types, different claddings, different handles, lots of different options to choose from out there. So for all of those reasons, the coolness factor goes to the Gyuto. We generally recommend the Gyuto to professionals or to home cooks who are very comfortable using an 8-inch chef's knife. Again, we would highly recommend the Gyuto if you feel like you're comfortable using a knife that size, because the longer the knife, the more versatile it's going to be. And if you're just looking for one knife that you can do everything with, these are all three great options, but the Gyuto is going to go a little bit further for you. If you find that yourself or maybe the person you're buying the knife for is a little uncomfortable using larger knives, then the Santoku and the Bunka are both fantastic options. Or maybe you're a professional, you have a Gyuto already and you're looking to slot into your kit something that's a little bit better at the more intricate stuff or a little bit easier to use, then both of these shapes are really awesome. The home cook is going to love using a Bunka or a Santoku if they're a little bit intimidated by those larger knives, because they're still super versatile. You can use them for tons of different stuff. And it's a little bit unfair to compare a Santoku or a Bunka against what I think we would all describe the end-all be-all of knives as the Gyuto. A little bit hard to beat the Gyuto. So there you have it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to smash the like button if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to our channel for more knife-related content. And until the next one, stay sharp.